What do most Fortune 500 executives have in common? After more than 100 episodes recorded with those very executives from companies like Disney, Amazon, Netflix, Cigna, and Google, the answer is clear. They learned lessons in leadership from the fields and courts of their high school and collegiate sports teams. Some of our guests' athletic experience earned them a place in their sports Hall of Fame, like Chick-fil-A Chairman Dan Cathy. Some hung up their cleats after high school, like Delta Airlines CEO Ed Bastian, while others, like Condoleezza Rice, claimed they were terrible in their sport. But no matter their skill level, they have all told me that being a part of a team taught them lessons they still use as leaders today. In partnership with Maxwell Leadership, I'm your host, Don Yeager, here to give you an all-access pass to genuine, authentic, fireside chat-like conversations with today's business icons so that you can create powerful, positive change in your own organization. This is Corporate Competitor Podcast. With me for today's episode is Drew Maddux, Executive Vice President of People Development at Ashley Furniture Home Store. Drew followed in his father and grandfather's footsteps to play basketball at Vanderbilt University, where today, more than 2 decades after graduating, he remains the program's leader for steals and is in the top 10 all-time in points scored. He climbed the corporate ladder in healthcare before following his passion to coach high school basketball in Nashville, Tennessee, where he led his team to back-to-back state titles. He is the author of 2 books, and today you will learn how Drew brings lessons from the court to Ashley Furniture Home Store. Remember to visit corporatecompetitorpodcast.com/142 and download the notes and reflection questions we put together for you.
Everything that you do every day matters. You have a part to play. Your story is significant in the bigger story being played out. I need to do it because somebody's dependent on me. So the only way to do anything is to be excellent at everything that you do. Our lives should never, ever stop sprinting towards and chasing after excellence in everything, in every way, every day.
Drew, thanks for joining us.
Don, this is an extreme honor. It's a privilege to be with you. Such a huge fan of your work. I'm super flattered and have an extreme amount of gratitude to be sitting with you today. So thank you for having me.
Oh, we're looking forward to it. You know, I spent a lot of time preparing for today, and I know that early you were consumed with this need to perform, and to help you do that, you developed an incredible work ethic. Those work habits helped you to grow into the basketball player you became.
Yeah. Resilience and perseverance were the through lines that existed from this extreme work ethic that was really downloaded into my life, going all the way back to being a little boy to the husband and the father and the civic leader and the business-minded person that I am today. It was really modeled by my father, my grandfather. My father had played basketball at Vanderbilt, and my grandfather had played basketball at Vanderbilt. They knew how important this dream was, this vision was that had been bestowed on my life. They were willing to do whatever it took to facilitate the dream making of that vision. If that meant support and encouragement, making sure we aligned with people that were like-hearted and like-minded, pouring kerosene on this fire that I had burning deep in my being, they were willing to do that. The way that they loved me was through the facilitation of ushering me through my process of ultimately making this dream become a reality one day. That was one of the greatest gifts, Don. I just had this firm belief that I controlled my work ethic. There was nobody else that could outwork me, that I could be the best in the world in terms of the amount of work I was willing to invest to ultimately step into the reality of the vision I had, which as a little boy was to play basketball at Vanderbilt University. I live in Nashville. I've grown up here in Middle Tennessee. We're in the central time zone. And many times after school and after homework, even if it was extremely cold outside or the weather wasn't picture perfect, I would still find myself out on my driveway shooting baskets because I had a goal every single day, even at an early age, to shoot 750 to 1,000 baskets every single day. And I would chart it. I would measure it. I would mark it off with check marks and keep myself accountable. I'm probably 11, 12, 13 years old when I realized that on the West Coast, they're 2 hours behind us in the central time zone. Don, I would go to bed maybe 9:30 or 10 at night. And in a matter of moments, I would think to myself, there could be another person out on their blacktop or on their driveway or in their gym. It's only 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock out there. And they're competing for the same finite amount of spots that I'm competing for to get the scholarship that I desire so desperately. I need to put back on my shoes and I need to get back outside and go back to work.
11 or 12 at night.
That's exactly what I would do, Don. I would put back on my shoes and go back outside and begin to shoot baskets and go back through my routine again. And this wouldn't just be a little like, oh, let's get some shots up casually. No, I'm going back through my full workout again and would double my time invested. That's how interested, that's how invested, that's how connected to the vision I had for my life. And this perseverance and resiliency through line has really ran its course throughout my life.
You know, you put a lot of pressure on yourself.
Yeah.
You had set this achievement goal of playing ball at Vanderbilt, and you succeeded. You still hold records there. Pretty incredible.
Yeah.
But what's the fine line between pushing yourself to your potential or maybe even a little beyond, but not overdoing it?
That's a great question, because what I just described to you was the blessing. Now I'm going to describe to you the impairment. In everything that we do, in every thought, and every feeling, every emotion, there's always a gold and a shadow side to all of it. I painted this beautiful picture of this work ethic and this resiliency and this perseverance that was really a part of my story. On the flip side, sometimes it didn't come from a healthy place. Nick Saban uses the term be invested in the process, where the blessing became the impairment, or the gold side of this work ethic became the shadow side, was when I got that distorted or I got that out of balance. And I allowed the destination or not getting the outcome drive this identity-driven approach to living ahead of the process or the journey or the unfolding of the story. I would find myself really questioning myself because I didn't get the desired outcome that I wanted. That's the key. Eliminate destination disease from being a part of the equation. We were totally invested in the process, in the becoming aspect of all that we can be. Yeah, this is a vision and a dream. Let's chase it with everything that we have within us, but let's not allow that to become the impairment of us becoming all we can be.
Destination disease. Wow. Many of us suffer from it. I'll never forget saying, well, by this age, I have to have this on my business card. By this age, I have to have achieved this. And the process, the journey was lost.
Yeah, you know, it starts really early in our stories. So there's 3 false identities to manhood. One, it really begins when we're little in that childhood phase where your athletic success somehow defines that you're more of a man than the person sitting next to you. So whoever gets to choose teams on the kickball field, or whoever has the strongest arm in dodgeball, and you can start even grabbing those images and those stories in your head of those moments where we've been there. And maybe you were the last person chosen, or you were the person that was left out. That changes as you move into your teenage years and into high school and even into college, where it's really defined by your status within the social scene. It could be as simple as who you dated, or the type of friend group that you run with, or do they have the power in the hallways? And somehow that set you up to be more of a man. And then what you're describing, Don, is when it moves into our adulthood, that power and prestige and how we feel about ourselves and what we subscribe to is really tied to our bank account. It's tied to the title that we hold, you know, the status that we achieve. And we get that so distorted and so out of bounds that these things are ultimately going to lead to fulfillment.
Right.
Go back to being a little boy. Performance to me was the pathway to have a seat at the table. It wasn't just people's approval and the applause of people. Don, my performance or getting to a result ultimately was defined as not being left alone. That my way into community, my way into relationship, my way into being a part of a group, performance drove that so that I wouldn't be isolated and be felt alone. My identity was on the line. So I felt like my performance led to the way that people loved me. So it was transactional based view of how you love. You do something for me, I give you something in return. In our church at Hendersonville, Tennessee, the preacher said a verse that is very common, probably the most quoted verse that we all know, and it's John 3:16.
Mm-hmm.
For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but shall have everlasting life. I never had heard it the way that he said it, the way that he broke it down. It spoke to me in that moment very differently. So loved. The way that I received it in that moment was, God so loved Drew Maddux, there is nothing that he can or can't do to earn his way into eternity. I so love you that I gave you everything I had, including my son, to be sent for you. You don't have to earn anything to have a seat at the table. You already have a seat at the table. You deserve to be here because you were worth dying for. You were worth me sending my son for. I began to become more and more free because I began to understand God's grace, his mercy that he had for me, the way that he loved me. And then I began to love and be able to feel like I was loved in that same way.
It flipped the paradigm because there was no relationship between your performance and how you were loved.
That's right. What's interesting is you ultimately go perform better.
Yeah.
Because you're free.
Right.
That's what's so crazy about it. It began to allow me to release the gripping fear of not getting the desired result and ultimately not feeling like I had value to bring to the community. And not that I think there's elements of fear that drive you in a way that are very, very healthy.
Fear being healthy.
Yeah. Here's what's interesting about fear. And I've done many studies and talks around the concept of fear. When you come into the world, you're actually only born as a baby with two fears, the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. Every fear in your life up to this point is a learned behavior, which means you can unlearn them as well. Anything that is learned can be unlearned behavior. That being said, if you're hearing our voices today, Don, every single fear that has ever existed in your life, you've overcome it. You can look at fear in a totally different way through a different lens. Fear actually leans you in to be a little bit more prepared than you would otherwise. Fear actually allows you to raise your hand and to ask for help and to say, I can't do this by myself. Fear actually connects you even closer in unity into the cause that you're pursuing, because once again, it's bigger than you. And you need others to be in as a part of that process. There's 4 aspects around fear. First of all, fear, you have to admit and acknowledge that fear is real. The statement to be fearless or to eliminate fear, I never tried to do with our team. I wanted to admit and to state and to acknowledge that fear is real. Let's talk about this fear that you're feeling. Let's talk about how we need each other. And let's talk about how it's going to lead to an extreme amount of preparation for you to overcome this fear. Number 2, analyze the past overcoming of every fear that you've ever had in your life. What were those commonalities that existed in the overcoming of that fear? 3, we're going to anchor a thought on the other side of fear. Tap into the faith element of stepping into the design destiny that you have before you. We're going to anchor a thought and a vision beyond the fear. And then the 4th component, Don, that most of us get stopped and tripped up on because it paralyzes us is act through the fear. You can't go around the fear. You can't go over the fear. You can't run away from fear. You have to act and move through the fear. Those 4 aspects, admit and acknowledge, analyze past overcoming, anchor a thought beyond the fear, and it taps into your faith, and then you take the risk so you don't live a life full of regret. And what ended up happening was I began to play as confident and as free and began to achieve even more than I ever imagined or hoped for, because I was playing in a way that it wasn't driven by the result. And if I made or missed a shot, made or missed a play, won or lost a game, isn't it amazing that your ability to answer what is your response to that is so much more freeing? Achievement will never lead to a fulfillment. What's on your resume is never going to be spoken about as somebody delivers your eulogy. What truly matters? What matters in this life? You've got to break down the walls of those false identities that drive what we think the culture says what it means to have it all. Ultimately, what life comes down to, when you're living life on the terms of full humanness at a level of ultimate fulfillment, life is about being a part of a cause that's bigger than yourself and chasing it with everything you have in relationship and as a part of a community that is safe. And it clearly states that you belong and matter, and what you do and who you are, more importantly, has value here. Once we're living like that, we are free on life's terms of what it's meant to live life of fulfillment.
You eliminate the destination disease.
Yeah, there you go.
Wow.
I'm not worried about it. I'm totally interested in what's the next stop in the journey more than where's the ultimate arrival of the destination.
Wow. Very action oriented. I like it. My favorite combination of words right there. You know, your faith, it bubbles over. It's obviously an incredible centerpiece to who you are. But I'm going to bet that not everybody that works around you shares your level of faith, whether it's the locker room, boardroom, one of these master classes. How do you interact, motivate, lead people that don't share that level of faith?
This is communication 101. You got to know your audience. You have to know the context by which you've been given this opportunity. When you understand those two aspects, your messaging, your communication, and what you're trying to do in the lives of the people you're serving connects with where they are. As human beings, we can all agree to certain universal truths, regardless of your faith background, regardless of what you believe. We were all raised up as children, and that should exist today in the way that we're trying to raise our children. And those kind of things would be to make sure that we're living lives that are passionate about what we're doing every day. Two, that we are serving generously, that you can constantly have your eyes open to the world around you and making sure that you're serving people in a way that is a blessing and a life-giving force in their life. The third thing is you can make sure that you love unconditionally. Those three elements, living passionately, serving generously, and loving unconditionally, regardless of your faith background, we can all come to the table and sign up and say, I agreed to a life of that. Once we get collective agreement to that, we can back into our messaging methods, our communication platforms, we can back into the way that we say it. But whether it's a faith background of like-minded like mine that we align to or not, should not take away from the basic values of what a contributing and fulfilling member of society should look like and feel like. And we can all agree to that.
Wow. Fast forward, we get into your corporate life, climbing the ladder in healthcare.
Yeah.
But you say you knew something was missing. In fact, you said you were winning at work, but losing at home. That's a truism for so many.
Yeah. I was with a healthcare technology company right out of school, just trying to balance because I had opposing forces, if you would. This achievement-driven approach to life. If I get what I want, then I'm ultimately going to live the American dream out, but also knowing that there's more to life than just what my bank account says or what the title says. How do you define winning? What does winning look like to you? Start with that vision in mind. Winning to me is holistic. Winning to me is comprehensive. Winning to me is not selective or compartmentalized. Winning to me means all of it. I want all of my life in every aspect of life. I want to be operating and contributing and impacting at the maximum levels that I have before me. I was achieving an extreme amount of success in terms of closing deals, creating transactions for our organization. Our organization had gone public and I was moving quickly in my 20s through the corporate ladder. But at the same time, every single second of that pursuit of what was going on professionally meant there was a trade-off of what was going on personally in my house. I would leave most Sundays or Monday morning, Don, and I would come back Thursday night or even Friday morning. Some days I wouldn't even unpack my suitcase. I would take out some dirty clothes and repack and then back to the airport Sunday because I was flying out into the field to spend time with different sales guys that I was leading at the time. And the more present I was professionally, the more absent I was personally. I was out of bounds. What I wanted to do was create a life. Now, it may work for other people, but for me, it just didn't work. That trade-off did not work. I didn't want to be a bystander in the stands watching other people be invested and connected in the raising of my children, and much less in relationship with my wife. I was missing those opportunities. I began to think through, pray through, maybe there was something else that could create more of an idea around winning comprehensively for me. What would that look like? Which led me to the next transition of my life to go coach kids and coach varsity basketball.
Right.
People would view it as radical. You leave a publicly traded healthcare technology company that is on its way to being a huge entity and you step into the world of education. Now, I also didn't say I was stupid. There's risk taking and then there's radical risk taking. I wasn't radical. I had it very calculated out. If we did this, I needed to make sure that I was examining and analyzing other practical ways to make sure that we provided a living to continue with life. I had a wife, I had 3 children at the time, and we went on to adopt 2 other little boys from Uganda. So we have a house full of 5 children. I'm an entrepreneur by nature. So it was like, okay, what are other things? What are other ways? What are other methods that I can try to make sure that I'm closing the gap on the deficit that was going to be created, which led me to the launch 16 years ago of our Nike basketball camps. We were one of the first markets that rolled out a service model in the youth sports space in partnership with Nike. Over 20,000 kids have come through those camps in the Middle Tennessee area.
I love it. Basketball, obviously, such an important part of your life. You have stated that there's a philosophy in life that you hold close. You say that we exist on 2 levels.
Yep.
There's the above the line, mindset, habits, rituals, routines. And then you have below the line, the heart and soul portion. But it's all about being excellent in everything that we do. It does seem sometimes we end up overly focused on one or the other.
Yeah. Our lives should never, ever stop sprinting towards and chasing after excellence in everything, in every way, every day. I don't believe that should ever stop. If I ever stop chasing and sprinting towards excellence, I'm probably not breathing, Don, to be honest. Think about that model. Everything that you do every day matters. You have a part to play. Your story is significant in the bigger story being played out. I need to do it because somebody's dependent on me. So the only way to do anything is to be excellent at everything that you do. When Jesus was asked about loving others and loving God, he quoted the Old Testament written by Moses, and he said to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. The pursuit of excellence is putting all 4 of those areas holistically into everything that you're doing so that your offering is a full contribution, every aspect of everything you have to offer. How does that practically play out? Drop it down a level. Well, my mission statement for my life is to pick up the trash, to leave people, places, and things better than the way that you found them. How does that play out, Drew? Drop it down to another level. Well, it plays out 2 ways. Love the next person in front of me the best way I can. And number 2, do the next right thing right. If I just start to stay focused on that and I connect the next right thing or love the next person in front of me, and I continue to step towards that, to sprint with excellence, full offering of my heart, soul, mind, and strength. So the way that I'm made, the way that I think, my habits, my rituals, my thought processes, plus the feelings and emotional aspect of caring for somebody in their process, and I start to stack together all of those connecting steps, it ultimately leads to the fulfillment of living a life of excellence.
So today you have your position with Ashley Furniture Home Store. You're an executive at Ashley. We've all been in an Ashley Furniture store, or if we haven't, they should be.
Yeah, that's right. Go now.
That's right. Hit pause.
Buy your furniture from Ashley.
Go to Ashley Furniture. As you're working with those who you are today coaching professionally, how are you helping them chase excellence?
Exactly by using this opportunity and a shared experience of selling furniture and really stepping towards the vision statement of our organization, which is to make life moments matter. Whether that is in their own personal life, with their family and their community, the guests that they serve, the homes that we're going to deliver furniture in, the phone calls we're going to answer to make sure we provide excellent customer service. Ultimately, their job matters. Their story matters, and what they do next matters. And it is connecting into the fulfillment of not only making life moments matter for themselves, but it's making life moments matter for the recipient of the service they're providing. Get people to start to understand, I'm not just selling a sofa. I'm not just selling a couch. I'm not just selling a bedroom suit. No, I'm creating and setting up memories that are going to last a lifetime for these people that I'm serving. This is where we're going to gather and we're going to open Christmas presents. And this is where we're going to deliver hard news from the test results. And this is that exact table where we're going to break bread and we're going to talk about life-altering course events in the course of that day. That's what we're trying to facilitate and get them to understand. And when they connect to that, you can't help but begin to chase the next thing that you're going to do for the organization with excellence because of facilitation of making life moments matter.
Coach Krzyzewski, longtime coach at Duke, had a concept that he constantly built out that I hear in what you're saying here. You want to create for those you're working with or teammates with kind of a feel it moment where they remember that what we're doing here is not delivering a couch. We're delivering the Christmas spot. How do you bring that to life to your team?
We're creating resources and tools, things like masterclasses, things like discussion groups, our legacy life groups, where they enter a 90-day journey of getting in vertical alignment and recognizing the needs of the world so they can go make an impact in the way that they were created to have. Essentially, it's a hybrid community discussion group meets a keynote speech. We do it live. I hosted 164 of our senior leaders in Nashville, Tennessee through cohort groups this last year, broken into 16 groups. And in the course of an hour, I lead them through a self-discovery journey, because here's what we believe. The horizontal release of how you're going to be in community and relationship and the way you're going to love others is an outward expression of an inner reality of the vertical alignment of who I'm created to be. And then we host discussion groups after, where I'll essentially host 30 people in a room just like this on Zoom or on Teams. And we begin to have discussion and facilitate even more self-reflective exercises for them through the course and through the class that has prompted them to think, consider, question, maybe dream of a different way. There's two gaps that exist for every human. One is the capability gap, who I am today and ultimately who I'm becoming. That's the capability gap. I want to make sure that we're beginning to walk towards who I am today and who I'm becoming. So we're going to facilitate and create resources that help close that gap and shrink that gap. Equally as such, there's another gap that's running almost parallel to that, the impact gap. Understanding who you are today and the needs of your family, the needs of the organization, or the needs of the world. Who I'm becoming never stops. I'm always becoming more and more my true self as I'm on this journey in this process. And then at the same time, I'm recognizing the needs of those around me and my gifts and my contribution and the impact that I can make. I start to shrink those gaps, and ultimately I'm living life on the terms of what I'm created to live. Back to this pursuit of excellence. If we are collectively going to be an industry-leading, world-class brand that pursues excellence, it really starts with each individual's contribution and their step towards excellence. Then we create interdependence on each other of everybody fulfilling what their specific role is, doing it fully with excellence, because I need you, Don, to do what you can do in a way that only you can do it. And I'm interdependent on you doing that. It's almost like an organism with all these cells that float around, and each cell has to play its part. And the interdependence, when we come together, creates a force that is a living organism.
I know as executive VP there of people development for Ashley Furniture, there are some methods that you use as part of your people development strategy. Can you share a little of some of the different ways that you help others grow?
Yeah, so it starts daily on our Interconnected site. They get a daily lesson in leadership from me every day. I have now written a daily leadership lesson every single day since I've been with the organization. Our teammates wake up to that every single morning. A team member is able to use that in their huddle time before the store opens or before the DC delivers a piece of furniture. They're able to come together and to be able to speak about and to center their thought around that leadership lesson. We host voluntary prayer time every single Friday morning, 5 minutes before the stores open at 9:55. We are attacking with vigor the mental emotional crisis that exists in our world today. And so we're rolling out programs with intentionality, Don, whether it's on our SharePoint site. We're breaking down 12 aspects of emotional health, deep diving into different programs and opportunities for our people to realize that they have resources at their disposal, making sure that we caretake for every single one of our team members across the country. Oh yeah, virtual coffees. Oh, I'm so glad you asked me about this. So every single one of our senior level executives all have a learning and development platform. Within that, we get to connect. It starts with an introduction meeting where we share elements of their story. So I teach them a methodology and a construct of which you can share your story, because it's through storytelling that people ultimately begin to build trust. That's step one. Step two is we utilize the Clifton strengths that Gallup has developed. There's 34 strengths, and we talk about their top 5. They do that assessment, and we go through that. That leads to part 3, which is they develop a growth profile, one sheet, all of the things, their stretch goals for the year, their strengths, the pursuing of playing to their strengths. I teach them how to write a mission statement for their life, the elements of that. How do you develop core values that are holistic and comprehensive? From there, Don, we begin to meet quarterly. Every single quarter, we come together. Most of the time, they last about 30 minutes. I have to be honest, I go over, but it's just a chance for us to check in, to look at those areas of their life, those stretch goals, tap into their strengths. How are you cultivating those strengths? How are you developing those strengths? And many times I'll give them assignments like a podcast or a video or some questions to consider. That is the journey of growth that each one of our senior leaders are on at this point.
Wow, I like that. Storytelling. It's one of my favorite discussions. I love teaching it and getting into conversation around it. How have you used storytelling in the locker room?
Yeah, that was the game changer in the locker room for us. I wanted to flip the locker room into a manhood classroom where everybody felt like they belonged and mattered. It was a safe environment for them. I came to the realization that society defines who are the successful players based on these recruiting websites by how many stars you have by your name. God led me to this passage in the Bible, this parable of the talents. If you know that story, regardless of whether the individual was given 5, 2, or 1, it wasn't about what you were given. It was your opportunity to do that which you were given. And are you maximizing with everything you have to create a return on that investment? Create a time where everybody would understand they belong and matter. So how do you do that? You have to give them an opportunity to feel like it's a safe place. Well, how do you create a safe and secure environment? You do it through the understanding of story, because story will create more empathy in the room. It will create more value in the recognition of people beyond Mr. Basketball or the all-state performer, that everybody matters. Which, by the way, Don, we never did cuts at the school. I never had a cut. Everybody that wanted to come be a part of the team could be a part of the team. So everybody in the room throughout the year, including coaches, I taught them how to share their story. There are these turning points and there's these shaping moments, and they would have to share with the individuals in the room the character or circumstance that was a turning point or shaping moment, which led to a challenge that was issued, what happened, and then what was the conclusion or resolution that led to the so what effect of who you are today. They would have to share at least 3 examples positively and 3 examples negatively, using that framework as a way to share your story. Don, we would have Mr. Basketball, all-state, being recruited by every program in the country, share his story, weeping, tears, full emotion. Equally as such, the smallest freshman on the lowest level JV roster, sharing his story, knowing that he is accepted for who he is. What it created was this environment that was extremely life-giving, where everybody knew they belonged.
Turning points and shaping moments, and how the resolution of those led to who you are. I love it. So with all your basketball accomplishments, all from Vanderbilt coaching, wouldn't you know it, you might be best known for your trick shot videos that have been on ESPN Sports Center Top 10, Good Morning America, Ellen. In the show notes, for those of you who are listening, there are some video clips. I've watched them. I have to tell you, hopefully you'll grow to enjoy it as much as I have. How did you get started doing these trick shot videos?
It really started in my backyard. We have a pool. I have 2 sons, as I mentioned, that we adopted from Uganda. And just one day we were out in the backyard and jumped off the diving board and made a basket in the pool. My sons had been watching Dude Perfect. They said, Dad, what if we videoed you on our iPad and we sent it to Dee and G and Nana and Papa, which are their grandparents? Oh, that's awesome. Let's do it. I jumped off, made it pretty quickly, and they shot the video and they sent it to their grandparents. That literally was the innocent beginnings of what it became. I started to post it to social media. I would post a shot of the day in our backyard or in the gym. Then I began to do a shot of the week at our basketball camps. Back to it, always looking for ways to make a connection with the other party who you're in relationship with. What's a way that we can make sure that we're in relationship? Well, regardless of your background, regardless of what you believe, regardless of how old you are, when you're in a gym with 200 kids and you see somebody throw a wild shot in a basket, you can't help but lose your mind.
Everybody stops.
And then I started getting requests from like the Omni Hotel downtown Nashville. Hey, can you make one on our roof? We began to say, hey, can you break a world record? We want to come video it. And what it's led to is ultimately connection, one, being in relationship, two, really showing and displaying and modeling the failing forward effect success can have. Through the misses, kids see this coach continue to miss, but never give up and keep trying, making an adjustment and eventually, have success with it. And in three, what you see is what you become. So you got to be able to see that ball going through the net, regardless of where you are. If you're blindfolded, if you're backwards, if you're throwing it over a house, you've got to be able to see it. And then you got to be able to create the reality of it.
Drew, we've asked this question of just about every guest we've had over the course of nearly 3 years. So many people refer to their corporate organizations as teams.
Yeah.
But the truth is, most of them aren't. They're just a bunch of individuals who happen to have the same business card. You've built teams. You've been on teams. You're building a team right now that's so large and corporate. Walk me through, if you had to give me a few elements, what are some of the mile markers I need to hit?
This is one of my favorite topics because I get asked a lot about this, the applicability of building a sports team and building a corporate environment team. Teams are a place where we have collective belief in a common vision. It's a place where we all belong, creating an environment of how we behave. It's the expectations. More importantly, it's what that experience does for each other. What does it produce for each other? So teams to me is being focused on what you can control. I love using acronyms. T, toughness. I can control my toughness. I can control how I respond. There's going to be mistake making and failing and learning that's going to happen, but I can control how I respond. That's toughness. What's the now what and the so what to what just happened? E, effort and energy. Being back out of my bed and getting on the blacktop, I can be the best in the world today at the effort and the energy that I bring. I control that. Nobody takes that away from me. A is attitude. What is your attitude? Your mindset. What is your thought process? When you wake up every day, do you wake up from a posture of gratitude? Are you on your knees extremely thankful for the gift of another opportunity to live today? Somebody needs you today, and the recognition of that and embracing that attitude of gratitude. The M to me is motives. What are your motives? Why do you do what you do? What is the ultimate purpose? Purpose is different than goals. Purpose always has to override the goal of what you're trying to achieve. Making sure that your motives are pure. It's in alignment with your purpose, your passion, and your why. And then the last piece is S, sacrifice. I can determine what I'm willing to sacrifice. What's the trade-off effect? What am I willing to risk? What am I willing to do? Who am I willing to speak into today? Am I holding myself back, or am I willing to sacrifice for the betterment of everybody that I serve? T is toughness, E is effort and energy, A is attitude, M is motives, S is sacrifice.
I like it. So Drew, I know you have 2 books in the show notes. We're going to link everyone to. But other than that, how can our listeners best connect with you?
Yeah, so I'm revamping my website right now. So it will soon be launched, drewmaddux.com, and that's MADDUX. But then if you want to find me on social media, I love connecting with people. Every day I put a thought for the day or an encouragement of the day on all my social media platforms. My Twitter handle is just @DrewMaddux. Facebook, you can find me, Drew Maddux. My Instagram handle's @DrewMaddux45. And if you want to see some of the shots that Don's alluding to, you can see those there. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Snapchat. I'm on TikTok.
You're everywhere.
Yeah, literally, it's just my name and you can find me there.
I'm so honored. You align with everything that we believe as well. And there's just so much goodness in all that you have to share. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you for pouring today into all of us and for being a corporate competitor.
Wow, Don, it was an honor and a privilege. And the fact that you even asked me to join you today, please know with full gratitude and appreciation how honored I was. And so thank you for what you're doing, the way that you're blessing, the way that you're life-giving others, and just keep up the great work.
Before I jump into my top 3 lessons from Drew's interview, I want to start by thanking Casey Tran, who serves as the Director of Training at Orient Commercial Joint Stock Bank in Vietnam, for being an avid listener of the show. In fact, she sent me a message that she is currently listening to 1 episode per day because she wants to catch up. How cool is that? I'd love to hear from you too. If you are touched or if any one of these subjects really grabs you, connect with me at maxwellleadership.com/Don and count on me connecting back with you. Now, I took 7 pages of notes from today's conversation. The first of the really great topics that he hit on was that idea that he controlled one thing that he was sure of, which was his work ethic. Even as a child, he was out taking 750 to 1,000 shots per day on the basketball court because he always worried that somewhere across the country there might be someone else who was up working in that moment. That understanding that there was that one thing he could control, and he did, in fact, control it, was really quite powerful. It was fascinating. It kind of led to a next discussion about how sometimes we get lost and we suffer from destination disease. We get caught up worrying about, are we on track or are we where we are supposed to be? That led him into a really powerful discussion internally about, what does winning look like? What does it mean to maybe win at work and lose at home? Some really, really touching discussions there. And then finally, I was riveted by the amount of leadership training the team does at Ashley. They want to make sure that everyone within the organization realizes they're not just selling furniture. They're part of someone's family and memory in the future. And putting all of that into a regular and consistent learning module for everyone there, leadership and on down, really kind of changes the way I see Ashley when I drive by their store later today on my way home. Thank you today for being a corporate competitor with us. Thank you for investing this time in learning. And I hope that it helps you as you go out and take the world on in your way. If you could share one habit, one thing you've done consistently that allowed you to separate yourself from your competitors, what would it be? In my 30-year career, 2,500 of the greatest athletes, coaches, and leaders answered that question for me.
This is Don Yeager, who did that article I was telling you about.
Don, Dave Sims with Coach K. How you doing?
Hey, Don. How you doing, my man? Great, sir.
What they gave to me is what I'm giving to you in my online course, Journey to Greatness. Through engaging storytelling and on-demand videos, you will learn the 16 habits that will jumpstart your personal growth. I will instruct you on how to apply these winning characteristics to your life through custom workbook exercises. We are slashing the price for our podcast listeners. Lifetime access to Journey to Greatness is normally $399, but for our podcast listeners, it will be $49 with the code podcast at checkout. Click the banner on corporatecompetitorpodcast.com to enroll. Thanks for listening to the show. I would be so grateful if you left us a rating and a review. We will be rolling out a new episode every Wednesday. To be the first to listen, subscribe to the podcast on our website, corporatecompetitorpodcast.com. Plus, as a thank you gift, you will receive a free chapter from one of my best-selling books on the habits of high-performing teams. Stay in touch by connecting with me on social media at Don Yeager, Yaeger, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Until next week, I appreciate you.